well as back or forwarding, he put extra hits on units, tried to pick them off, but also started putting hits on buildings and took out key buildings and took out lots of workers, and all that economy added up. And if you look at the resources and just consider a gold mined, but then reduce that by gold lost to upkeep, Happy actually comes out pretty close to equal, despite having got his second gold mine up about 5 minutes after his opponent. So that's just the power of applying that much pressure to the human army, which is going to be at a lower tech than your own army for a lot greater duration of the map. Other things to think about. Also, we've discussed map strategy. Again, if you don't get that so it's like a good spawn, you get that cross map spawn. Really consider creeping out the 2 green berserker camps in the middle with just the Death Knight. Basically, the way you do that is focus down the berserker first, coil him once, hit him to death, summon 2 skeletons, then focus down the trapper, then the caster. By then it'll be night time, so heal up your Death Knight in the middle, and then wash, rinse, and repeat on the second camp. Then that'll allow you'll be in tier 2 then, start your own expand up. You get level 3 from that as your Lich comes out, and then you'll be able to harass your opponent's expansion and quell over off a lot of his workers. That works as well. Next thing I want to discuss is scouting. LT is a very large map. You need to be able to scout. Right at the start, you want to send your Acolyte Scout counterclockwise to make sure to see if you've got the most favourable spawn first, and you want to send your Ghoul Scout once you've got your second Ziggurat down clockwise to check for the second most favourable spawn. And that sort of means if your Death Knight comes out, you'll have checked the 2 most important ones first, and if your opponent is cross map, you can just go straight to the middle and start creeping. So that'll cover all that. Later on in the game, you want to use shades and you want to use your skeleton rods continuously. Make as much use of it as possible. So long as economy is equal, you're really not at a disadvantage on this map. Where the imbalance on this map does come is if you can't get up the expansion, or your own expansion, or if your opponent can expand again. So Happy to stop his opponent from expanding again, put a lot of pressure on him, and that works very well. If you can't do put that same amount of pressure on your opponent, for example, you've got a cross-map spawn, you really need to use shades and skeletons just to, if any expansion looks like it's going up, then go attack your opponent and use 3 lumberghouls from your base to take down the expansion. Little tricks like that. Or, you send your army there, do something. Don't let your opponent out-economy you that badly. And just make sure you get your own expansion up yourself. Next thing that's important is items. You'll notice that Happy, who had a superfluous amount of gold income, used his items very well. He made good use of not only items that he got from creeping, but he bought a lot of mana pots, a lot of heal pots. He made sure he always had town portal scrolls on his Death Knights. And the reasoning for that is your opponent's going to focus fire your heroes quite a bit with the Griffin Breaker army, but you can counter that through item use. Also, the items allow for a lot more nuking, which is always a good thing. Heal scrolls aren't that important against the Breaker Griffin army, which is not using any AoE, and you haven't really got any units which will benefit from the heal scrolls overly much, given he's a focus firing army, so don't worry about the heal scrolls. One thing I would have liked to have seen Happy do is creep out a goblin, not a goblin, so just a shop, so he could get invulnerability pots for the Death Knight, because you saw the Death Knight did get close to death a couple of times and have to TP, so an invulnerability pot could just save him at a crucial juncture, and you don't want to lose a game for losing your Death Knight. Because as we all know, when the Death Knight goes down, the Lich invariably follows extremely quickly. So an invulnerability pot would have made him a lot safer. Which brings me to my final point in terms of overall strategy. There was a lot of hero focus fire in this game. Basically, Crypt Fiends with Tri-Hero nuking from the Undead, or Stormbolt, Griffin, Breaker from the Human, and they're both very powerful at killing heroes. So you really need to, at all times, basically, when you start the battle, right-click and then shift-select a bunch of enemy units you want your Fiends to focus fire in order, and then just keep your heroes safe. You saw Happy micro back his Death Knight immediately, every time, just to protect him. Unfortunately, because he was doing that, he couldn't save the Crypt Lord every time, and he did die a lot. But, it's better than maybe the Lich or the Death Knight himself. The important thing is, don't let your heroes get out front unsupported, because that's what happened to Sonky a few times. He lost his MK carelessly. sort of right at, as he came out to a Crypt Fiend surround. He lost him a few more times when he got out too far trying to Stormbolt the Death Knight. You make mistakes like that, it'll really cost you, and that's really what, Sonky lost the game because despite having an earlier game strong economy, he got out-economied by an undead who expoed 5 minutes after him. That's going to cost you a game. Next sort of thing to understand is the Breaker Griffin army. It's very powerful, and it's probably more powerful than Fiend Abomination if you don't micro well and think properly. The real damage output from his army comes from the Griffins. They do a disgustingly high amount of damage, even against heroes, despite having magic damage, and they'll kill statues, they'll kill fiends very quickly, especially when combined with the Mountain King Stormbolt. So the important thing is web them very quickly and then get the hell away from them and just focus down on his Spellbreakers. Spellbreakers are good, but they're not very good at killing fiends because you can burrow and coil. They're not very good at killing heroes because you can run away and they're pretty slow. And they do get focused down by a fiend with a Lich Orb pretty well. So that's a winnable battle. But you got Abominations which do additional damage and tank very well against them. But if you let him get those Griffins and let them do a lot of damage here, you'll suffer. So web those Griffins, get away from them, play from there, you'll do alright. And that's exactly what Happy concentrated on doing, and that's what worked. So, we discussed scouting, we discussed map strategy, we discussed heroes. Just finally, I didn't really like the choice of the Crypt Lord. I explained that earlier. It didn't really add a lot to his army. I felt that perhaps all it did was add experience to Sonky, which is never really a good thing. You don't want to do that. But what he did do, he did give him Pale, which can be quite useful for getting those hero kills. He did offer an extra body to carry items, which is not a bad thing. And he did offer some extra tanking. So, especially combined with the Lich's Frost Armor at the end, it does give you options. And, I'm not going to criticize a professional player who could wipe the floor with me in a matter of seconds. So this has been Destroyer's third audio commentary for WC Replays. I'd just like to read out again. I hope you had a fantastic Christmas and a great New Year. I hope all your family and loved ones are safe, your friends are well, and that you've had a great holidays. As I wrap up, I'd like to give shout-outs. A big shout-out to James Sparrow in the member audio section, who's a fellow Undead commentator who I love listening to. He does a really fantastic job. If you like some of my things, he's just as good as mine, so I recommend you pop over to the member audio section to listen up to what he has to say. It'll be really worth your while. Big shout-out to Yaya, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, who's a Danish member of our forums, who's been very kind to me. We've had a fairly long-running series of PMs discussing different strategies for different maps, for different races, and it's been really good. Guys, feel free to PM me. I always respond to everything I get, and I try to help everyone. I definitely consider myself for the members, so if you have any requests for an audio commentary or ideas, a replay you'd like covered, or anything like that, let me know and I'll do what I can for you. And finally, a big shout out to Mr. fucking Cygnus, the most pimpest audio commentary that's ever existed, because this guy, when I was just starting, he was my inspiration. He was one of the first audio commentators I ever listened to, and I've never laughed harder than when listening to this man. So Jim, if you're out there, I'm here because of you, buddy. And for anyone who's really looking for a laugh, there's actually a Cygnus audio commentary where he talks about getting hit on by a transvestite. Absolutely hilarious. I recommend it to everyone. So this is Destroyer signing out. Bye!